Welcome to another episode of the House Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts, Rob Schwartz and Justin Onayemi, two Bears fans who decided talking into a microphone was better than shouting at their television.
All right, welcome into episode 26 of the House Huddle Podcast. I cannot honestly think of a player who wears number 26 on the team right now.
Not now, but from the 85 Bears, Suey?
Yeah, there we go. We'll just call it that because
Matt Suey episode.
Yeah,
you got to be old to know that.
I bet there is someone wearing 26, but I just can't think of who it is.
Ain't no game changer.
Right. Well, as always, it's Rob Schwartz, joined with me with my co-host, Justin Onayemi. It's a little bit of a different situation tonight. We're podcasting remotely, this is the first time we've done it remotely, hasn't it? I believe.
I think my first time where it was you and Jeremy, I was remote. Were we together?
I thought we were together.
We might have been. Have to go watch the tape.
I think we were. Yeah.
So it's my fault. It's my fault that we're shooting the Ocho. It's my fault that we're shooting this. Unfortunately, I began getting symptoms today and tested, and turns out I'm COVID positive. Our family of 6, no one has had it this whole time, and then now we got 2 of us battling this right now. So thankfully, symptoms are mild. As I was getting ready for the show, Rob, my throat was hurting a lot. So I was like, oh, man, I got to rest my voice. This is my moneymaker.
Yeah.
So, la, 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 la. How do I sound?
Fantastic.
If I have any bad takes, we're blaming COVID.
All right, that works. In fact, I'm honestly, you got maybe a little bit of a raspierness. You got when Phoebe gets sick in Friends and she sounds completely different.
Oh yeah. TV reference.
Yeah.
I like it.
We always got to get them in there.
Little bluesy, smelly cat later.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, so I guess let's just dive in. Bears lose 25-20 to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles still have only 1 loss on the season. I don't think anyone really expected Chicago to win this game, but they came out fighting. They gave themselves a chance. Once again, in the fourth quarter, they had an opportunity to, march down, put up points, and they did. And then they just let those points right back up. So, but yeah, it was, overall, what did you think? What did you think of the game, just from a general stance?
Well, I think the last, I'll go as far back as maybe 6 games. There's been this uncomfortable feeling as a Bears fan of, do I actually want them to win, or is losing the best thing for the future and draft pick? And I definitely will tell you, and you could check my Twitter feed, I was hoping they'd pull this one out. They played really well. They kept it close the whole time. And we still haven't seen Fields have that game where he drives down the field late and wins it. I think those are coming. We just might have to wait till next season and the season after that, and then hopefully the next 5 to 7 after that. So, in the end, they played well, and their pick is looking even better thanks to the Broncos.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I didn't even know that until you told me pre-show. So, who did they play again?
Broncos
Arizona?
with a win for Arizona. So now both those teams have 4 wins. Bears have 3, and they're the only team with 3. Texans are real sad, although they gave the Chiefs all they could handle.
That's 2 weeks in a row. They almost beat Dallas the week before. Then they almost beat Kansas City today. I think both games went to overtime. So
probably Houston, just like the Bears, moral victories are better than real victories at this point, from some perspectives.
Yeah. So I was disappointed. I was really hoping they'd find a way to win.
See, and we both are on record saying that now. And I know if you listen to all of our podcast episodes prior to this, we probably sound like we're leading the tank talk around town, which that's not totally how I feel. But at the end of the day, the result is the result. this does not look like a team that's lost 7 games in a row in terms of the effort and, buy-in, I guess, to what the coaches are putting out there. I do still think there are some coaching mistakes here and there, but they're also all in their first year in their various roles.
Yeah. The play calling I thought was fairly decent, but there were still, again, some like play calls that took place that I was like, this is just not good situational football. I know we've talked about that throughout the season with Luke Getsy. There's in particular a 3rd and 1 that they tried to run Justin Fields.
Yes, what? I was just about to say.
Yeah, to the outside. And like
I was just about to say the number one play that comes to my mind, probably the same one for you.
Yeah, well, and it would have worked if Cody Whitehair and Braxton Jones were faster. But, I mean, Justin Fields basically outran them, and then Cody Whitehair couldn't hold his block, and then Justin Fields had 2 guys basically to beat, and Braxton Jones went for the outside guy but couldn't get there. It just didn't seem like the right play at the right time. Then they go for it on 4th down, like a little out to Dante Pettis. Not the greatest throwing ball, but still hit him in the hands. And if you have a top wide receiver there, that's probably a catch.
Agreed. We talked pre-show. In addition to breaking down the game, we're going to highlight some encouraging things from today's game, discouraging things, and some surprising things. And one of my discouraging is the way Cody Whitehair played today. And the only thing encouraging about it is if anyone listens to episode 25 of our podcast, we talked about how they could cut him and add to their already high level of cap room. And today looked like that's an automatic move they have to make.
Yeah, I tweeted out after the first sack that he let up that he's just not worth $14 million. So I think today justified that, like just like you said, justified that last episode.
I mean, going back to that 3rd and 1 play you just talked about, very obviously a bad call there. Actually, no, I'm looking at my notes. There's a different 3rd and 1 that I also felt they did a bad job. Fields did a design run, like a quarterback sweep to the short side of the field. They were on the left hash mark and ran it left. And he ended up losing, I thought, 2 yards, but I guess it was just a yard. They then went for it on 4th down, which I do think was the right decision, even though I believe that was that the one that Pettis dropped?
Yeah, I'm not positive. I think we're talking the same play. Yeah, it was a design run to the short side. I know there was a 3rd and 1
where I said, geez, 7-step drop.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is a little bit of a delay between Justin and I recording like virtually compared to how we are normally sitting next to one another. So there might be some pauses for anyone who's listening to it and not watching the actual video. And this is the reason why. So technology is fantastic, but as I noticed in my live streaming podcast I did today, the person who I was streaming with, it was an Eagles guy who works for Belly Up Sports, and he was at least a play and a half ahead of me. So every time something happened, he would have a reaction, and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to wait for that one.
I was pretty active on Twitter today, and Twitter always is ahead of me on my Hulu feed. So it's like a blessing and a curse. Sometimes yes. I kind of know something really good or potentially really bad is about to happen. So I kind of have my phone like upside down. I don't want everything spoiled. But yeah, our normal flawless chemistry will be a little off in this episode, but we'll get back to it hopefully next week.
Yeah, it'll sound fine.
Can I just can I just throw out a big time like overarching thing that we can hopefully spend a couple minutes talking about? Really upsetting is just the number of key injuries today. First, it was ESB being evaluated for a concussion. Obviously, the injury to Jenkins looks very serious. Jalen Johnson late in the game with ribs, I think. And, Fields went down at one point, and I'm like, oh, my goodness. But turns out that was just cramps. I didn't know if they should rush him to an IV and back on the field, but he's shown all through that he's a really tough guy. I just don't know if, this is the season to be pushing anyone. So I hope they play pretty conservative with some of these serious looking injuries, but to have all that going on and still play this, what many people think is the best team in the NFC, maybe the best team in the whole NFL, and you still played them to a one-score finish, which is, I believe, the 7th time this season the Bears have lost a game in a one-score situation. So,
it just shows you how.
Do you have any updates on any of the injuries, Rob?
Script could be flipped. I have not been on social media since. Justin playing down here with his illness, but I am running on 2.5 hours of sleep. So it's honestly not a bad thing that we're podcasting separately, because we are going to keep this one a little bit shorter than normal. As I've said multiple times, my wife is into this cookie thing at this time of year, and we celebrated my daughter's birthday yesterday, and then we were up until a little after 4 o'clock in the morning, and then had to get up again at 6 to get her ready for her event today. So I'll apologize. My brain is not moving as rapidly as it normally does. But yeah,
there's a 60 to 70% chance that one of us is going to fall asleep during this, and we can't know the guy.
Somebody get those odds on DraftKings or PointsBet or something. But yeah, I haven't seen anything. I'm glad you said that there was just a report that it was cramps, because when I was watching it live, I was not listening to any of the sound. So I had no idea either what was going on outside of what it looked like. And then I also was not really on my phone during that live stream. So when I saw it happen and I thought it was his hip, I thought he might. I was like, let's shut him down for the year. I mean, the way he was walking off, the way he walked to the locker room, I didn't want to see Justin Fields on the field again. And then he's back and he scores a touchdown. It's insane, the toughness of this guy. I just hope that he's not beating up his body so bad that it's not going to be healthy for 2023.
So in our mock offseason, we definitely wanted the Bears to nab another quarterback. We ended up with BYU's quarterback. What's his name?
I'm blanking on the name. All I could remember was the school.
I'm blank. Don't worry. You said your brain's moving slow. I'm not going to look it up. But it was funny because when Fields went out, Nathan Peterman comes in, and I'm sorry, I still only think of him as the guy that threw 5 picks in a single half. So his one and only throw was an incompletion, and I was celebrating like a non-pick. That's such a great outcome.
And to be honest,
so obviously Simeon being out,
And to be honest, there could have been a chance that was picked off. I mean, it hit our receiver in the hands, but there was a defender right there.
Not what we want to see. Luckily, it was only for one play.
Yes.
So, can I just say another funny one, Rob? The very first opening kickoff, the Bears get flagged for illegal formation. I didn't even know there was a possibility of an illegal formation receiving a kickoff. So, thank you, Bears, for teaching me something new.
So the only thing that I knew of, and I don't know if it was considered illegal formation, but they stopped the wedge, right? But clearly that's not what they did. It's not like they were interlocking arms and stuff like that. So, but that was, I think that had its own name. I don't think it's considered an illegal formation, but maybe I'm wrong. But I didn't think that's what they did. They didn't explain it, did they, on the broadcast? Because I had a few times.
I felt the broadcast a few times left us wanting for more, but no big deal. I mean, they just re-kicked it from the 40 and ended up being a touchback or whatever. So
right, it's almost just fast forward, take a few seconds off the clock and start over.
I thought beginning of the game there were a few pre-snap penalties on the Bears, and it's you're going up against a team you are definitely a huge underdog to. You can't be doing this, and that's just the first thought that came in my head. But they actually overcame some of those. Which kudos to Fields and the rest of the offense.
it seemed like every time there was a penalty, Justin Fields was scrambling for a first down. So I gave him a lot of basically for the reason why they were able to get first downs and overcome those things. Because at one point, so the first play was a false start on Ryan Griffin, right? And then two plays later is a false start on Braxton Jones. And then for the scramble, was there I can't remember, was there a hold or they just let up a sack? And it was like 3rd and 17, and then he scrambled, almost scored.
I mean, they gave up, I think, 6 or 7 sacks today. It was not the best overall performance. Going up against a very tough defense, obviously.
I had 3 of those on Cody Whitehair, by the way. I haven't, obviously, the all-22 is not available.
I definitely
but yeah, it was just not good. But
I mean, for many years, I would have put him in. Yeah. For many years, I would have said he was your best offensive lineman, but he doesn't look the part right now.
This was by far his worst game that I've seen all season, but it was just that bad where I'm like, I'm definitely not paying him $14 million next year.
Heck no. You can get so much more for a team that needs so much with that money, which they don't get all of it, but a good chunk. After that false start by Braxton Jones, that made it 3rd and 10. And I put here they converted it on a gain of 20 to ESB. But I think for a long part in the game, maybe all the way till the Pringle touchdown, that was the longest throw.
Yeah, and then unfortunately that's when ESB went out with his concussion. And they really didn't have very many plays downfield like we've seen in the past. I mean, you had no N'Keal Harry, you had no Chase Claypool. They tried with Valus. It looked to me like he ran the wrong route. It looked to me like he just kept with a go, and Justin Fields wanted him to run more of a post because where Fields put it, it was on the inside, like way inside.
Yep.
And just based
We're
on
talk more about Valus in our
yeah. Why don't we just?
Go ahead.
I don't have really much any like more just general stuff to say.
Well,
about the game.
I got something.
Okay.
Wait, actually, I'm gonna give you a pop quiz. How about this? Pop quiz for you before we go to another segment.
All right.
What is something that Justin Fields did very well today that you've been asking for a while?
So this will be in one of my things, in my encouraging. But I'm going to assume that you're going to say that he did the dump off to the running back.
A lot of checkdowns to Montgomery, to Kmet. And you could tell these were not his primary reads. He was making reads, keeping the play alive, and then finding the checkdowns.
Yes. Yeah, I was
Good job,
very
Rob.
excited.
With all the distractions and sleep deprived, you still
Yeah, I definitely was excited and encouraged by what I saw from him, because to me it shows it's showing growth, right? It's showing that he's willing to do what needs to be done. At one point in the game, he was like 8 of 9 for 60 yards. I mean, and that was early in the game. He only ended up with like 152, 157, I'm guessing, somewhere around there. So people who are like, he can't throw the football, never hits the 200 yards, blah, blah, blah. But again, at one point, he had only 1 incompletion and he had 60 yards. He had no help at all today. Outside of David Montgomery. David Montgomery played very well today.
I agree. I actually think I didn't write it down. I was looking through my notes to see if I did. When he was 8 for 9, I think he had a little more yardage than 60, maybe 81 or something, but still, under 100. But the efficiency was there. The taking care of the ball was there. And then he's still doing it with his legs. That incredible 39-yard run that he almost took to the house. People were saying, just give it to him anyway.
Yeah.
Who cares that his toe was on the line?
Barely stepped out at the 9. Barely stepped out tonight. Okay, actually, one thing I'll bring up, because this isn't anything that I have in my encouraging, discouraging, or surprising, but what we're seeing from Jalen Hurts now, to me, is what we're going to see from Justin Fields hopefully as soon as next year. The big difference, and you see it, Justin Fields has thrown beautiful balls the same way that Jalen Hurts would. Those guys on hit, AJ Brown just like catches everything, like over the shoulder throws in the pocket, doesn't fall through like it does with our guys. Like if he can have an actual wide receiver,
what's so crazy to me.
What was that?
Go ahead, Rob. No, go
I'm
ahead.
saying if he has a true wide receiver one, and maybe Claypool can be that, not necessarily be that, but maybe Claypool would help that going into next year. I mean, we've talked about it. They do need a wide receiver. But, like, I don't know. A.J. Brown just seems to catch everything. The other thing, though, that I do notice is A.J. Brown takes a lot of slants. And I'm still calling for slants here in Chicago. I don't see them enough. And I know you kind of need the bigger body guy sometimes for those. And that's what A.J. Brown is. But he's also fast. So, like, he can, gain an extra 8 to 10 yards on every catch. But it's like, now you do have Claypool, and he still wasn't really running them.
Claypool is plenty big to be running them. He's quick, he's fast, he's big. You can run a slant with him, but the Bears just do not. But is it crazy to say that Jaylon Johnson had a really great game, a lot of the time one-on-one with A.J. Brown, and Brown still had 9 catches for 181 yards?
Yeah, so that's also in my encouraging. I had written down Jaylon Johnson's play because he was on him every step of the way. He had that great pass defense that he broke up in the end zone to stop the touchdown on that drive. And so many times he was in the right spot, but Hurts just put it in the perfect spot, and A.J. Brown made great catches. I mean, there was nothing Jaylon Johnson can do.
I tweeted at one point, Jaylon Johnson is that dude, and he's starting to maybe even get some respect because there were a few close times where I was like, oh, he's getting a little handsy. They're letting him play. And, we've talked all season how the Bears seem to draw these ticky-tack pass interference calls, and I don't know if it's respect for Jaylon Johnson or maybe this is a crew that just doesn't throw the PI that often, but he was, step for step with one of the best receivers in the league and, I think getting the respect from the officials. So I thought Jaylon Johnson played a great game. I thought the entire secondary, even though the stats might not say it, really showed up. And I think it's probably the best unit the team has, both now and looking to the near future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Felt the same way. It was very weird because he threw for over 300 yards today. Granted, almost 200, like you said, and went just to A.J. Brown. But when you have two guys like that, and they're going to get Goddard back too soon, the Eagles are a Super Bowl contender. They're the front runner in the NFC. Like, to me, the only team that really I could see potentially beating them is the 49ers. But then we're talking now with Brock Purdy. I don't know. I just think the Eagles have their number 2. But any team can win.
I was almost certain you were going to say the Cowboys.
I mean, the Cowboys
could
potentially be that team too.
Yeah.
But I just think the 49ers are the second best team in the NFC. But any team
so
in the
should we take a break and then on the
AFC could beat them too. Yeah, let's take a break.
A lot of good teams. Yeah, take a break and then come back with our encouraging, discouraging, and surprising things from today's game.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, sounds good. The arsonist has oddly shaped feet. Oh, sorry there. I'm still working on my voice, Rob. And like we said before, we're back here with the Matt Suey. Look it up, kiddos. Episode 26 of the Hallis Huddle. If you're used to the normal brilliant chemistry between the two of us, things are a little choppy on my end. So, Rob, what did you say it looks like from your side?
So from my side, it looks fine, but I can tell that going to you, it's like a Japanese movie. It's like Godzilla, the old school
Yeah.
black and white one.
Look, Godzilla. And then the mouth still moving for a good 5 seconds.
Well,
So,
nowadays,
it'll be what
if
it
you
is.
watch Netflix shows and movies, there's so much stuff that's dubbed. It kind of looks like that.
I watch most of my Netflix I watch in bed, and my eyes aren't what they used to be. So I know what you're saying, but sometimes I'm just like, all right, I won't look at the screen as much because it does throw me off. So we talked about our next segment here. We want to talk about some encouraging things from today's game, discouraging things from today's game, and some surprising things from this game. And Rob, the ever optimistic Bear fan, wants us to start with discouraging so that we can end with the butterflies, rainbows, and unicorns and ice cream.
It's that like business practice, where they say to kind of sandwich it. So it's kind of like a play off of that, where you always end with a good note.
I like it. So I think you kind of explained that you didn't have the best setup for taking a whole lot of notes today. No notes. Limited notes for you. But I have a lot. So I think I will have to lead us a little bit on discouraging. In the break, I think, man, I was shocked you didn't allude to one of them. So I'll make sure to mention it. But can I kick it off real quick?
Yeah, it could be that I have it, because I have one that I didn't mention. So I'm curious if it is that one.
You got to be honest, though. I
will be honest. I'll show you my phone.
Nah, I trust you. Despite what you said in the best case, worst case scenario, I still trust you. Look, you gotta be a real Alice Huddle aficionado to know that reference. So,
oh man, that was such a good episode.
Great, it was a classic. They're already talking about making a 30 for 30 of it, I think. But so we already talked about at least 2 3rd-and-1s that had some iffy play calls, and I just put for discouraging. We've seen enough of that it's a little bit of a concern that it's a pattern for Getsy. But I'm going to forgive him and say he's a first-year play caller, not working with the best roster. We know this. So let's see how things look down the line if he's still here in Chicago. But do people take the OC from a 3-14 team?
I mean, it's possible. It's definitely possible. I mean, you see what they've done offensively. It's definitely possible, but I find it also highly unlikely.
So we'll see. In year 2, continuity with Getsy and Fields and a much better roster, I would hope a lot of these things take care of themselves. What do you got, Rob?
Yeah.
Give us a discouraging.
Yeah, so I want to go back to the Cody Whitehair thing, because I started watching the game again because I wanted to kind of track. I didn't get to finish it for the second time, but I wanted to track the Alex Leatherwood plays and see how much he was actually on the field and kind of keep an eye on between him and Riley Reif, like who was really looking better out of the two. And I could not stop watching Cody Whitehair get beat. And the thing that really bothered me is that him and Braxton Jones, and I put most of this on Whitehair, if there's an offensive lineman listening, like a professional offensive lineman listening,
Olin Cruz,
someone preferably not with an okay initials, because I'm not looking to hear from him. But if you're watching these stunts, like Cody Whitehair just can't seem to pick him up. It's a delayed stunt, and when the outside guy comes to the inside, I would think that has to be on Cody Whitehair. As the inside guy goes to the outside, Braxton Jones is picking him up. So it was so bad, and 2 sacks came from those. But that wasn't even just it. Even on run plays, he just seemed to be going slow. To me, looked, if we're going to measure loafs, like I saw a lot of loaves.
the whole bread aisle at Aldi. Shout out to Aldi sponsorship,
Nice.
maybe.
Maybe I like that.
Yeah, I guess in my opinion, you gotta blame Whitehair. You're talking about a rookie 5th-round pick and a 6-year vet, 7-year vet. I don't know his actual years in, but that's my estimate. And I can think of at least one right off the bat where it's exactly what you said. The right end and interior DT on the right side do a stunt, and Whitehair inexplicably continues to follow his guy, almost pushing Jones off the block.
Yeah.
And then the guys get a free shot at Fields. So unacceptable. Oh, can I go to Leatherwood real quick?
Yeah.
There was one sack that came off the right side, and he was in right tackle at the time, so I was thinking, oh my gosh, did he get burned? But they actually left Komet one-on-one on an island, and that did not go well. Led to a fumble that Leatherwood actually recovered, so give him a little bonus there. And it wasn't his miss, although I think he later gave up one pretty ugly one as well. Do you remember that play?
So I almost wonder, though, if he did not do what he was, like, his actual assignment on that miss with Cole Kmet, because everybody went to the inside. And I almost wonder if he was supposed, like, it was supposed to be Kmet and Leatherwood on Reddick, especially with how well Reddick was playing already in this game. But I want to say it was either the very next play or the play after. No, it was the very next play. And that was the scramble. Hassan Reddick almost gets Justin Fields down. And then just out of pure strength, just whoop, gone down the sideline. But outside of that play, though, actually those two plays, and Hassan Reddick is very good, by the way. From what I've seen so far, and I've only gotten close to the end of the first half by rewatching it and really focusing in on right tackle, he played okay. I didn't think it was great, but I didn't think it was bad.
I would agree with that assessment. You know, when you talk about Fields on that long run and just like a 250-pound D end is hanging on his back and he just like shakes it off, not to excuse it, but I wonder if that is part of the reason he doesn't get the calls on some of these hits, is that he is the kind of guy, he's not down until he's down. Kind of reminds me, I believe it was the Washington game where he like almost broke one, went down to his knee, and should have been down right there, and then they just cleaned his clock. But like, as a defender and even as an official, you're like, is this guy down yet? So I don't want to see him take any unnecessary hits, but you wonder if his brilliance actually leads to that some of the time.
Well, that kind of goes into one of my other discouraging is in the offseason, and I'm pretty sure Justin Fields, we talked about this, I'm pretty sure Justin Fields played baseball. I don't, maybe not in the college level, but at least in high school. He needs to get with somebody to teach him how to slide, because although it's gotten slightly better as the season's gone on, like, he makes me so nervous. And I do think that's part of the reason why he does take some of those hits too, is just the awkward slides that he makes. But I do think as you are giving yourself up, obviously it's a little bit different. I know that play that you're talking about where it almost looked like he was going to slide and almost looked like he was going to pop back up, but his knee did go down. I just wonder if that's part of the reason why. I mean, I don't know. He needs to learn how to slide. It's really bothersome to me. And on in one of the particular plays, he took a illegal hit and didn't get a call again, and it was on Sue, who has a little bit of a history for being a violent player. So the fact that they just kind of let that one go by, I mean, he basically got clubbed in the head. It's bothersome.
So, this won't look like a hot take right now, but I think one of the best sliding quarterbacks in the league is Russell Wilson. And Justin Fields reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson, not this year's version. The way Wilson's playing, maybe he's going to become a slide coach next year and can just teach Fields how to slide, because I don't know that Denver wants to see him playing quarterback, even though they drove a big old truck of money up to his residence, and then he said, "Let's ride to the bank."
Right.
Not to my playbook. I don't know. That's a mess, but they won today. So
They
Bears
did.
have the number 2 right now.
That's very encouraging.
So I got a really quick discouraging, and then the one I thought you for sure would want to talk about. So I'll give my quick one. We don't even have to talk about it. I feel like it's a slight coaching blunder or just looked ugly. There was a time that the Eagles were setting up for a field goal, and the Bears inexplicably had to call timeout. And it was like, why? It didn't matter, but you just want to see a clean game. And when you say hits principle, that's the kind of stuff you shouldn't be doing. You never know when a timeout could make the difference. But speaking of field goals, Santos missed another extra point, which isn't a field goal. I get that. But what do you have to say to that, Rob?
So I actually didn't
I was
have
at the point where I was.
I actually.
Sorry,
this is,
real quick.
If this is the one that you were thinking I was going to have written down, I do. But it might surprise you because I had it in my surprising and not in my discouraging. And the reason being is that.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, the reason being is like prior to this year, he hasn't had these kicking issues. And on top of that, from a field goal perspective, he's actually been fairly decent this year. But this is like his 5th missed extra point.
6th, I believe.
So it's surprising to me just based on how efficient he has been over the last couple years.
I'd have to rewatch the tape. But in addition to missing the extra point, he just declined to even attempt a field goal within 50 yards. Now, I wrote down it was either 43 yards or 48. The only reason I was unclear is the Bears ended up taking a delay of game penalty, and I don't know if it was one of those where the Eagles just declined it because they figure why give you the cushion to pin them, which I believe they ended up doing. It was a really nice punt. But you shouldn't be punting from their 31. And it wasn't, I didn't think it was a crazy windy game that, this is one of those games where you can't kick. So to your point of in the field goal game, he's been good. If you can't kick within 50 in today's NFL, when guys are hitting, mid 50s pretty regularly, I would like to see some competition brought in the offseason. If he wins that competition, very good. At least he put him to the fire and he came out the victor. I wanted to cut him right away today and ask you just to send a message and, can we bring in a young guy for 3 weeks to try him out? But that was my emotional response.
I mean, you could cut him if you wanted to bring someone in just to see what are they playing for right now. They're playing to see who should be here next year. So I wouldn't be opposed to that.
I didn't know how the cap would work, if it would hurt this year's and not next year's, or probably both. You're the cap expert. Plus, that was my emotional response, like I said.
It would hurt the same way, whether it was at the end of the season or if it was now. There wouldn't be really any difference. You're just going to be paying him his game checks for the rest of this year, which you were going to pay him anyway.
Couple more quick discouraging ones, kind of rapid fire here.
I have one, and this is the one I thought you were gonna say you thought was on my list. So this is like where I thought you were going. The Velus Jones fumble, like this guy finally gets a little bit more of an opportunity with multiple wide receivers out hurt again, and he fumbles the football and, in my opinion, ran the wrong route.
Well, that was on an end around. Oh, you're talking about 2 separate plays.
Yeah, so like there's 2 plays right there that stood out. And as someone who has a fumbling problem, and I know it was on punts, you can't do that again.
I agree. You know what? It's funny. I kind of was doing this list chronologically, and very early in the game, I put Velus Jones as an encouraging point, saying he's very aggressive as a kick returner, and it was paying off slightly, and you could see how maybe he'll break one. But then his lack of ball security overall makes you wonder if he's going to be able to have any role whatsoever. So it was encouraging, but then I couldn't even stick with that based on his play later in the game.
Yeah.
Can I rattle off a few more discouraging things?
Yep, go ahead.
Unless you have more. Okay. So here's a really quick one. We don't even have to talk about it, but I think Tristan Ebner in a very limited role this season and in today's game just hasn't impressed me at all. Darrington Evans also in a limited role. I'd rather roll with him, even though Ebner is a draft pick. I just haven't been impressed with him. We don't have to say anything more unless you got something.
I agree.
I thought that the 22-yard touchdown run by Hurts, where Brisker came blitzing, he's your sack leader, so he was coming for the big hit, but took the wrong gap, and Hurts went in, not only untouched, it looked like he was doing pregame warm-ups, just running sprints or something. There was no bear. If you were playing two-hand touch or flag or, I don't know, any other form of football, he still wouldn't have been down by any means. So that was discouraging. Even though Brisker overall played a really good game. I also thought special teams overall wasn't so good. We already talked about the missed extra point. There were a couple of times they had good coverage, but to start the second half, they gave up a huge kick return that led to points. And then a really bad punt by Gill that I think only went about 21 yards. So I just thought overall there was some bad special teams play, and that doesn't even include the illegal formation that we didn't even know you could do.
I really want to see the all 22 on that because I'm really curious on who was where and what stands out to me as maybe what is illegal. So I'm gonna have to look at that one. Real quick though, I do think Gill. I know he had the one bad punt, played a good game outside of that. He had two that he put real deep. The one you already mentioned and another one.
Agreed. You said we'd go surprising next and then finish on encouraging. So you want to take us through some surprising things you saw?
Yeah, so Cairo Santos, one I already mentioned, and I only had one other one. And it was surprising to me that the defensive line looked more like a defensive line today. Even though they only got one sack, it just felt like there was a little bit more pressure on Hurts that, led to the interceptions. But that kind of went away after the first quarter-ish, going maybe a first quarter and a half. You didn't see it as much towards the end of the game. But also, the Eagles are a really good running team, and I felt like they contained them fairly well. Miles Sanders didn't have the best game. In fact, for some reason, Philadelphia kind of abandoned the run, and I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think pretty late in the game, Sanders only had 4 carries or something like that. He did later have a fumble too on a reception. So that
led to points.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that was late enough that wouldn't have been the rationale for why he wasn't getting touches. But I agree with you there. I do think the D-line played better than we've seen them, even though that's not saying a whole lot. But I still felt there were times where they, dialed up the blitz. I want to say Joe Thomas might have came in on the blitz, and we didn't talk about this, but the reason he was playing is because unfortunately Sanborn also went out with an injury. We should have definitely mentioned him. He's our guy, I know. And that was yet another injury that we're going to have to follow up on and see. Hopefully not too serious.
Which I tweeted this out, by the way. Anyone who says he doesn't have sideline-to-sideline speed did not watch him take out the ankles of Jalen Hurts from behind, because it was a thing of beauty.
Totally agree. And that's not a slow guy. He looks slow compared to the quarterback on our side, but He's not slow at all. And Sanborn definitely chased him down on that play that you're talking about. I already mentioned this, but it was still surprising enough that I want to highlight it again. I thought the secondary played very, very well with many tough assignments. We already talked about Jaylon Johnson, which isn't as surprising. But what about Jaylon Jones? I think he's carving out a role for himself next year. In our mock offseason, we talked about how they're going to need a lot of depth at DB. Some of those are guys who might be on this roster, and I think they got to give a serious look at Jaylon Jones. Kyler Gordon, after missing 2 games in a row, played probably one of his best games, which was good to see. And Brisker, minus that discouraging blitz play, which I'm putting that on him. I don't know. I don't think you can put it on anyone else. But I thought he played well as well. and that's without the captain of the secondary, Eddie Jackson.
Yeah, I agree.
I got one more surprise.
With all of that.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm done with mine. So whenever you're ready to go to encouraging, just let me know.
This is super easy, super fast. I was just surprised the Bears kept it close. I wrote that early in the game, and then I had to add it at the end. I was like, not only did they keep it close early, they kept it close throughout. And some people already were talking about, Eagles got a big one with the Cowboys next week. Did they overlook the Bears? I don't think NFL teams do that. I mean, not well-coached ones, not ones that have intentions of going all the way. So I think the Bears just played with heart, played with pride, and they're just not as good as the Philadelphia Eagles. So I was impressed that they surprised me by keeping the game close throughout.
So that was actually a perfect segue to go into the encouraging, since I know that you don't have any more surprising, because in my encouraging, I wrote down the fact that the Chicago Bears kept up and were in a one-score game, again, with multiple opportunities to win, and, in my opinion, left a lot on the field points-wise. That first drive, for example, they were driving until that they stalled on the 3rd and 1 and then didn't convert on 4th. To not come away with points there was disappointing. But they kept up with, again, in my opinion, the top team in the NFC.
I was encouraged by a lot. I've already said a whole bunch of them, so I won't repeat them. But I counted a total of 9 different things in this game, and we're talking about a loss that knocks you down to 3-11, 7th straight loss. I mean, it'd be really easy to be down in the dumps about a team that's in that circumstance, but there was still a lot that I was encouraged by as a fan. So real quick, said it already, but got to shout it out one last time. Really strong play from Gordon, Sanborn, Brisker. And I know Sanborn's the undrafted free agent of that collective I just named, but he's earned a spot for me. And so those 3 could be a part of your future for a long time, and they all looked really good today. Unfortunately, Sanborn with the injury, we just hope it's not anything too serious. You want me to keep going?
I'll touch on Gordon because I also had Kyler Gordon's play on mine. The only reason I didn't put Sanborn is because I had Sanborn in my discouraging just for the injury. But I guess I could have easily separated the two and probably should have, because he was playing great prior to that injury. But the Kyler Gordon play, I tweeted it out. I loved how aggressive he was being going at the football today. I know he had just the one interception, but I should say but he had the one interception. But
just
then
one. Come on, Kyler. Just one?
And then I want to say it was on the very next possession for the Philadelphia Eagles. He had a near other one on the sideline where he dove for it.
Yeah.
Just seeing him attacking the football and kind of playing a little bit more aggressive, I think that is how he is going to be a better player. So I was very encouraged by how loose he looked out there.
I'd have to give it a rewatch, which I'll be honest, I'm not going to do to answer this question. So I'm just going to ask you. You might give it a rewatch, and you might even do the All-22. But in our mock offseason, you had a strong preference for Gordon to not be playing inside in the slot in the nickel, and you thought he was better on the outside. I hope I have that right. But I thought today, I thought he made good plays in both. And maybe even better in the slot, to be honest. So what's your evaluation of that?
Yeah, from what I saw, that he was much better today going and playing the nickel than he had been over the last, handful of games prior to his concussion. But I'm going to look at that as well, because I'm also interested to see which ended up being better, him on the inside or him on the outside. And how much did they actually switch him to the outside? I wasn't able to focus, zero in on him enough to pay attention to how often he was in versus out. I know that they were using Jalen Johnson to shadow A.J. Brown, which is something, most of the time the Chicago Bears don't do. But Jalen Johnson was following 11 the whole day.
that goes all the way back to the Kyle Fuller days where he was hands down your best corner, but yet who am I gonna say? I don't know if it was John Fox or Nagy, but they would not have him stay on the number one receiver. And it looked like today, right. Every time I saw A.J. Brown, I basically saw Jalen Johnson. I think Jalen Jones might have made a good play on A.J. Brown once as well.
Yes, I recall that also.
An encouraging one.
Go ahead.
You already referenced this, but I'm just going to highlight it again. After Fields had that remarkable 39-yard run that we wished was a 49-yard touchdown, the very next play was a 9-yard touchdown for Montgomery, and he ran it right behind Leatherwood. It would be awesome to see if Leatherwood is the guy we think he can be. I mean, he's a first-round pick only in his second year in the NFL, and to pair that with Jenkins, who's been a mauler. But unfortunately, Jenkins with the injury had to leave on a stretcher, I believe was hospitalized. So, that's, I would say, a season-ending injury. Who knows? But is the future Jenkins and Leatherwood on the right side? If you listen to our mock offseason, we hope it's a lot better than that. But I was encouraged by that play.
I'm honestly really nervous about the Tevin Jenkins injury. They said it was a neck injury, which a lot of times can be associated with back injuries. And with his history, I really hope that we're not seeing the end of Tevin Jenkins' career. I know that sounds very pessimistic, but it was a very scary situation because he was basically he wasn't even really engaged with anyone when it happened. Like he was, and then it just I don't know. He just went down. It was a very scary situation. So I'm not going to play doctor, especially by just watching something happen. But I'm just hopeful that he's able to recover. I can't imagine he'd be back at any point this season. But if he can become healthy, we talked about Leatherwood being there for depth or competition. I think if you got Jack Conklin like we did, in our mock off season, it's going to be hard to have Leatherwood be that guy, but
yeah, he could be a depth piece though. Yeah, you're right about Jenkins. It almost makes me wonder, and the name just popped in my head. I was about to mess it up bad, but a better version, because they got a little more out of him, of Chris Williams. Bears spent a first-round pick on him, and then he turns out, and I guess other teams may have known this, that he came in with a back injury. Was it back? Either way, he never got going, and I think was out of the league by 2-3 years in. And I hope that's not the case with Jenkins. He's trending in the right direction, so we'll see. But I have to remain consistent and just say this. When it comes to injuries, I always want them to consider these are human beings who are giving up their bodies to do something they love. But at some point, if it's not safe for them, it's not safe. So we'll see. I hope it's not, a career-ending type of thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. I got 2 more, but we kind of talked about both. I really like that Gill pinned them back with that punt inside the 5. I think it was to the 4-yard line. But it was right after the Bears went 3 and out when the Eagles had done a turnover on downs. So more encouraging would have been you seize that opportunity and you get points. But we can't have it all, right?
Unfortunately, no.
And then the last thing is just this team played with so much heart. I don't know. I'm impressed. I don't know if that's corny to say or a meatball type of take. But you had an article. I'm going to plug your article because maybe you don't want to do it yourself. But naming some coaches that were on the hot seat, and I think 5 of the 9 that were named were first-year coaches. That used to probably not be how the league works. But more and more and more, this is a what have you done for me lately type of league. But his name was nowhere to be found, and I think we both agree it shouldn't be on there. Lovie Smith, maybe you could say the same thing because the Texans have been playing with some heart down the stretch too, and they only have 1 measly win and a tie. But I think this team is still playing. They're giving it their all. They're just not good enough.
Yeah, I tipped my hat my hand on that play or on that article at the very beginning, basically just saying, look, there's no reason for him to be on this list. Part of it was the expectation. Some of those other coaches came into teams that had higher expectations, based on where they were the year prior, based on the moves that they had been able to make with free agency. So there's no reason for Matt Eberflus to not be the head coach of the Chicago Bears in 2023.
Well, and I don't know all those situations too well, but I wonder how many of those first-year coaches are also with a first-year GM. I mean, it would be really kind of gross to me if Poles were to put this on Eberflus. I mean, I think they both know what they're dealing with. They came in with kind of a mess of a roster. Before you rebuild, you got to break it down to the studs, and that's what they did and are doing. So this is the result you see on the field. I think you and we were rose-colored glasses, thought that Fields could be enough to get 6, 7, 8, maybe even 9 wins. But guess what? We just said that 7 losses have been in a one-score scenario. And, Velus Jones stops muffing punts and blah, blah, blah. But there is the age-old saying, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. So it's not about what could have happened. It's about what is happening, and they're 3-11 for all those reasons.
Yeah. Bad teams find a way to lose, just like good teams find a way to win.
We can't change the verb yet, but we are Detroiting. But do you see what Detroit's doing right now?
They might
I don't know, man. I want this division.
If Minnesota lost that game, which they easily could have.
Go ahead.
If Minnesota lost that game, which they easily could have, would there have even been a way for Detroit to climb? I don't think there was. But they've been winning.
We said the Bears have lost 7 games by 1 score. I think they may have won one by 1 score. Yeah, the Texans. So they're 1-7, let's say. I think 1-7 in 1-score games. The Vikings are 10-0, including the NFL record for comebacks. So you kind of look at that as they're going to come back to the mean, whereas the Bears can kind of go up a few wins, especially with a turned-over roster. So we said take the North. We thought we were talking about from the Packers. They might have to take it from Detroit. Who would have thunk?
Yikes. Yeah, I'm not putting money on Minnesota in the playoffs.
No, do not. So, Rob, it was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Tough episode to shoot because we're remote here.
Ergo, bear down.
Yeah. All right, here you go. Give me one of those. Pop. Bear down, baby.